Hello, everyone. Scoot back a little bit so I'm not all blotchy. All right. How's everyone doing? I am Kris. Welcome back. I should say that. Hope you got your Halloween candy. I bought a bunch of it to give out. I'm going to snack on some because I'm a pig. Okay. This is The Void. I think I've done something from their channel. I think I did. That's why I subscribed. Hey, don't you try to fight with me. This is The Void, though. This is YouTube's Darkest Corners. They have a part 2 up. This will be one video. It's 23 and a half minutes. I don't want to fight you. Come here. Here's the pup. He just blends right in, doesn't he? Oh, of course. Now you don't. Well, there you go. That's Jackson. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, he's a stupid dog, but he's a good dog. He just always is walking around wagging his tail. You can't help it. You just like him. He drives me crazy, but it's okay. I got him to stop chewing. I gave him a dog bone. What are you doing? Okay. So anyways, before we get started, see me click that thumbs up. You could do the same for me. That helps out tremendously. You can subscribe to the channel if you'd like to, and you can also donate to the channel through the thanks button. If you do donate, you can request a video in the comment section. I'll give it a heart, and then I'll comment back to you, and your name will be sponsoring that video. You can donate and not have me do anything, just thanks. I appreciate that as well. And you don't have to donate at all. Nothing is pushed on you. It's up to you. You can still request videos without it. Just leave me something in the comment section. I do, obviously, the paid responses, they get first billing, but I do my best to try to get around to it. I don't give you the shout out. I say this was requested, and that's it. This was not requested. This is something that I'm wanting to do because, as you can see, if you can see, where can you see? You can't see until I do this. There you go. It's getting close to Halloween. And I really just love these kind of creepy videos anyway, so that's why I do them. So, I've got my candy ready. I haven't recorded in a week. I didn't over-record. I recorded more videos for like 2 weeks, and what I'm doing now is for next week, but I'm trying to just stay ahead of the curve so I don't always have to pile on. None of this matters to you, but it's a me thing. I'm just sharing. Okay? Let's get into the video. Or maybe not. You know what? Let's not do the video. Now let's do the video. There you go.
Did you know that every minute, over 500 hours of video content is uploaded to YouTube? While much of it is entertaining and educational, there's a shadowy side to this vast platform. Hidden deep within YouTube's algorithms lies a world of unsettling and controversial content waiting to be discovered. In this video, we delve into YouTube's darkest corners to uncover the most chilling and contentious content ever uploaded. From bizarre channels to downright disturbing footage hiding a hidden truth, join me as we navigate the creepy underbelly of the world's largest video sharing site. Welcome to YouTube's Darkest Corners. YouTube is filled with countless family videos, capturing birthdays, holidays, and everyday moments that families want to share with the world. These videos usually bring smiles and warm feelings, showing us slices of ordinary, happy lives. But sometimes, a video surfaces that hides a sinister story beneath its cheerful facade. This video is one example. a seemingly typical family gathering, yet the reality is, it's anything but. At first glance, it's just another family memory, with everyone enjoying their time together. But hidden within this footage is something truly horrific. To understand the true meaning behind the horror in this video, we need to explore the backgrounds of Karla Homolka and Paul Bernardo, an ordinary-looking couple who share a dark secret. Karla Homolka was born on May 4, 1970, in Port Credit, Ontario. She grew up in a typical middle-class family and was known for being intelligent, outgoing, and popular. But underneath her...
Does that name ring a bell for anyone? Because it does not for me. So I've never heard of it. I might know the case, but the name didn't ring a bell.
A friendly facade, Karla had a disturbing fascination with cruelty, particularly towards animals. Paul Bernardo was born on August 27, 1964, in Scarborough, Ontario. His childhood was far from ideal, raised by an abusive father who was a known predator. Despite his troubled upbringing, Paul came across as a charming and well-mannered young man, excelling in school and enticing those around him with his looks and charisma. However, beneath this all was a man consumed by violent fantasies and a deep-seated rage. Karla and Paul's paths crossed in October 1987 at a pet convention in Scarborough. The connection was immediate and intense, quickly becoming an inseparable pair. They immediately clicked thanks to their shared dark fantasies and a mutual desire for control and domination. As their relationship grew, so did their criminal activities. Together, they planned and executed a series of increasingly violent and horrific acts, assaulting at least 18 women and taking the lives of 3 between 1987 and 1992. Karla's loyalty to Paul was unbreakable, even as his demands grew more extreme. This bond ultimately led to the tragic events of Christmas Eve in 1990. In the months prior to that night, Paul and Karla's relationship grew increasingly toxic and dangerous. Paul's obsession with control and domination kept growing, and he demanded more extreme acts to satisfy his disgusting desires. Karla, who was deeply infatuated with Paul, found herself willing to go to any lengths to please him. This unhealthy relationship between the two led to the decision of their next victim being...
Is this the one where she picks the sister, her own sister? Because I've heard of that case. I know about it. Hold on.
Karla's sister.
Yep.
Tammy Homolka. Tammy Homolka.
Homolka. Okay, I do know Homolka. I don't remember. Spoiler. If you want to fast forward this part, I think do they rape and murder her for him? Let's find out, because then I know the case.
Was a bright, cheerful 15-year-old who looked up to her older sister. She had no idea of the sinister intentions Karla and Paul were planning. In the weeks leading up to Christmas, Karla and Paul began to discuss their intentions in chilling detail. They saw Tammy as the perfect victim, someone they could easily manipulate and control. Their discussions weren't just theoretical, they carefully planned how they would drug and rape her. Karla, who worked at a veterinary clinic, had access to powerful sedatives. She stole halothane, a potent anesthetic used for animal surgeries, with the intention of using it on Tammy. The couple's plan was to make Tammy unconscious, allowing Paul to fulfill his twisted fantasies without resistance. On December 23, 1990, Karla and Paul put their plan into motion. They invited Tammy to join them for a festive evening of drinking and celebrating the holidays. Tammy, trusting her sister and Paul, had no reason to suspect anything was wrong and fully joined in the festive celebrations. As the night progressed, Karla spiked Tammy's drinks with a sedative-laced cocktail. When Tammy became drowsy and disoriented, Paul and Karla took her to the basement, where they administered the halothane, rendering her unconscious. What happened next was nothing short of horrific. Paul and Carla assaulted Tammy while she lay unconscious, recording everything on video. However, their plan went horribly wrong. As the night went on, Tammy began to vomit and choke, and despite their attempts to revive her, she ultimately died of asphyxiation. In a desperate bid to cover their tracks, Carla and Paul dressed Tammy, cleaned the scene, and called emergency services, claiming she had accidentally choked on her vomit. The Homolka family was devastated by Tammy's sudden and tragic death.
You know they're going to do a toxicology report on it, right? Unless they said that she was just drinking and then she fell asleep and she passed out and then did the Jimi Hendrix and just, choked on her vomit. But I would think they would do a toxicology. I guess you can request it. You don't have to, though. I don't know.
Unaware of the true cause. In the days following Tammy Homolka's death, the Homolka family was overwhelmed with grief. They had lost a beloved daughter and sister under tragic circumstances. Carla and Paul's ability to put on a show of shock and sorrow was convincing enough to divert any immediate suspicions from themselves. To the outside world, Tammy's death was a heartbreaking accident. The authorities initially accepted the story that Tammy had choked on her vomit after a night of drinking, closing the case without further investigation. Tammy was laid to rest, and the family tried to move on from the tragedy, unaware of the sinister truth. However, the pair didn't stop there. Paul and Carla's criminal activities continued, and their behavior grew increasingly erratic. Their insatiable desire for control and dominance led them to commit more awful acts, which ultimately caught the attention of law enforcement. The investigation into Tammy's death was reopened, and this time authorities inspected every detail. Forensic experts re-examined the evidence, and discrepancies in the initial cause of death became apparent. The video recordings of Tammy's assault, which Paul and Carla had arrogantly kept, were discovered during a search of their home. These tapes provided irrefutable proof of their involvement in Tammy's death and other crimes. 3 weeks after Tammy's death, Carla and Paul had also filmed a video titled "The Fireside Chat" inside the Homolka home. This video, which later surfaced as court evidence, began in the basement recreation room before moving to Tammy's bedroom. During the recording, Carla shockingly admitted to Paul that she enjoyed Tammy's rape. And in a disturbing twist, Carla dressed in Tammy's clothes and acted like her sister while they had sex on Tammy's bed. Faced with overwhelming evidence, Carla struck a deal with prosecutors in exchange for a reduced sentence. She testified against Paul, painting herself as a victim of his manipulation and control. This deal with the devil, as it came to be known, sparked outrage and controversy, but guaranteed Paul's conviction. This is where we return to the innocent-looking home video of Tammy taken on the night she was attacked, which is available to see on YouTube. Tammy is seen in the first few seconds of the clip, enjoying a drink and enjoying Paul and Carla's company, completely unaware of the plan her sister and Paul had in store for her.
Television, and we have Carla drinking, and Lori, which is...
Everyone seems to be enjoying themselves, celebrating the Christmas festivities and having a good time. Little did anyone know what Carla and Paul had planned for Tammy later that night. Knowing the truth of the events that would unfold makes this video incredibly difficult to watch. The story of Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka really shows how darkness can hide behind seemingly ordinary moments. Their ability to portray themselves as innocent and considerate allowed them to commit such horrific acts for so long, even deceiving those closest to them, showing that true evil can often wear a friendly face. Paul Bernardo was sentenced to life imprisonment, without any possibility of parole, for his sick and twisted crimes committed to innocent young women. Carla Homolka, on the other hand, served only 12 years in prison before being released.
If you're her family, I mean, 12 years, she was involved in your daughter's death. You know, your own child was involved in another child's death. And they get 12 years. No. No. Not good enough. So, let's say 91. Let's say 92. She went to prison. I'm just throwing out a year. So that would have been 2004. She would have been released. So she's been out for at least 20 years. Wow. That's, yeah.
Following her release from prison in 2005, she moved to Quebec, where she did in fact get married once again. She reportedly now lives with her husband and 3 children, under the name Leanne Teal, a surname but
I am so glad he gave the name. Because she doesn't deserve privacy. She doesn't deserve to just do that and then live out her rest of her life. Like she deserves. People should know who she is. Absolutely should know who she is.
Nardo had taken from the serial killer in the 1988 film Criminal Law, now adopted by Leanne. The Tianjin explosion is one of those events that's hard to forget. It happened on August 12, 2015, and shook not just the city of Tianjin, but the entire world. Imagine this: a quiet night suddenly interrupted by a massive explosion, so powerful that it was seen from space. That night, a series of explosions occurred at a chemical warehouse in the port area of Tianjin, China. The first explosion hit at around 11:30 p.m. Just 30 seconds later, a second, much larger explosion followed. This second blast was the equivalent of 21 tons of TNT, creating a fireball that lit up the night sky and caused shockwaves that were felt miles away. The destruction was immense. Buildings were flattened, cars were tossed around like toys, and windows shattered in every direction. Witnesses described the scene as something out of a disaster movie, with flames reaching hundreds of meters into the sky and debris raining down like fiery hail. So what caused this catastrophe? Dry nitrocellulose. The container overheated, causing a spontaneous ignition. This fire reached another hazardous substance stored in the warehouse, ammonium nitrate fertilizer, which caused the initial explosion. Following this, with so many more dangerous chemicals and substances around, another explosion would soon follow. Investigations revealed that the facility was storing dangerous chemicals far beyond the permitted quantities, and many of these substances were housed in close proximity to each other, creating a ticking time bomb. The chemicals were kept far too close to each other and to residential areas, which turned the warehouse into a disaster waiting to happen. The aftermath was chaotic and tragic. Firefighters and emergency responders rushed to the scene to battle the flames and save lives, but many of them became victims themselves due to additional explosions. In total, 173 people lost their lives, including 104 brave firefighters. It was one of the deadliest days for emergency responders in recent history. The stories of the firefighters who ran towards the danger, knowing the risks, are a testament to their bravery and dedication. These men and women were hailed as heroes, and their sacrifice is remembered to this day. But the human cost didn't stop there.
Did they, I'm guessing they were there fighting the fire before the second explosion went off, and that's what killed 100, or most of them, probably 104. It was the second explosion, I'm guessing. Be a firefighter. You gotta be brave. Because the risks are just...
More than 800 people were injured, and thousands were displaced from their homes. the environmental impact was severe as well, with toxic chemicals contaminating the air, water and soil. Residents reported respiratory issues, skin irritations, and other health problems long after the explosion. The psychological impact on the survivors and the families of the victims was profound, with many struggling to cope with the trauma and loss. Footage of the incident is just incredibly shocking too, showing just how close residents were to the chemical warehouse. One video in particular shows the first explosion, with the resident being too close to the warehouse. And based on the video, we can only assume he and many others perished from the explosion. The way the video cuts off leaves one speechless, to be honest. In one moment, he and hundreds of other people lost their homes, families, and lives. The immediate silence is haunting, to say the least. In response to this disaster, the Chinese government launched a massive cleanup and investigation. Several company executives and government officials were arrested for negligence and corruption. The cleanup operation was extensive, involving thousands of workers and taking months to complete. Continuous monitoring of soil and water was necessary to ensure that the levels of toxic substances were brought down to safe levels. The government also implemented stricter regulations and safety protocols to prevent such disasters in the future. The Tianjin explosion became a catalyst for change, prompting a nationwide reassessment of industrial safety standards. All in all, the Tianjin explosion is a horrifying event which has left a lasting legacy on the survivors. It must be difficult to attempt to return to a normal life once again, with their homes, friends and family members having been taken away from them. Their homes are now one big graveyard, reminding them of what once was before such an awful tragedy struck.
I'm going to say that camera angle where the explosion happens and then it goes silent, I'm looking out for the positive, so I'm going to say that person's alive. But what I want to say is that shockwave, that concussion wave, probably knocked the camera out of his hand or whatever, took him down, knocked him down. But I would like to think that he was too close, but not close enough to die. That's my hope on that. God.
I wanted to conclude this video on a controversial individual whose name might not be too familiar for any viewer outside of the UK. Top of the Pops was one of the most iconic music shows in British television history. It brought the latest and greatest hits into homes across the UK every week, making it a staple of British pop culture. At the centre of this show was Jimmy Savile, an over-the-top and charismatic host known for his eccentric style.
I don't know much about him, but I know that it wasn't good after he died.
Larger-than-life personality. For many viewers, Savile was synonymous with the show, a trusted figure who brought joy and entertainment to millions. But beneath the surface, there was a darker side to this celebrated TV star that would eventually come to light. Jimmy Savile was more than just a TV host. He was a cultural icon. Rising to fame in the 1960s, Savile's career covered radio, television, and charity work. He was known for his unique look, complete with flashy tracksuits and oversized jewelry, and his catchphrases that many fans loved. Savile's rise to fame began with his work as a DJ in the dance halls of post-war Britain, where his larger-than-life personality and love for music made him a standout figure. By the 1960s, he had transitioned to radio, becoming a beloved voice on the airwaves. His unique style and ability to connect with listeners made him a household name. When he joined Top of the Pops, he brought that same energy and charisma to the television screen, quickly becoming one of the show's most popular hosts. In addition to his media work, Saville was heavily involved in charity, often seen running marathons or organising events to raise funds for hospitals and children's homes. His efforts earned him numerous awards and even a knightship from the late Queen Elizabeth II, further cementing his status as a national treasure. But while the public saw a man dedicated to good causes, those who worked closely with him began to notice troubling behaviour. Stories of inappropriate comments and actions started to circulate, but in an era where celebrities were often given a blind eye, these warnings were simply dismissed. His access to vulnerable individuals through his charity work and media presence provided opportunities for exploitation that went unnoticed or ignored. Despite growing unease among some colleagues, Saville's star continued to rise. His predatory behaviour was protected by his fame, and the fear from organisations to challenge a figure so publicly loved for his good deeds. On a seemingly typical evening in 1976, Top of the Pops was filming at the BBC's West London TV Centre. The studio was alive with excitement as fans gathered to see their favourite artists perform. As Jimmy concluded the evening's performance, he was surrounded by many young women, one of whom was Sylvia Edwards. Without warning, his hands began to wander inappropriately, a moment captured on live television. Sylvia's reaction was immediate and shocking. She jumped and shrieked in shock. But what makes it worse is that he just kept going. His behaviour wasn't subtle or accidental. It was almost an act of dominance performed right in front of an oblivious audience. As his hand roamed, the young woman can be seen reacting, her shock and discomfort evident to anyone who was paying attention. But in the chaos of the live show, her distress went unnoticed or ignored by those who should have intervened. The incident, though brief, left a lasting impact on the victim. She later recounted how she felt a mix of shame and helplessness, saying, "He just laughed and carried on mauling me while talking to the camera. I felt so embarrassed and ashamed because it was on live TV and all my friends and family were watching." The response to the young woman's complaint was a window into a much larger problem. When she reported what had happened, she expected someone to take it seriously. Instead, she was told to get lost, and that Saville was just messing about. This dismissive reaction wasn't just one incident. Within the BBC, there were attempts to keep everything quiet, and the victims silenced. Saville wasn't just a popular host, he was a valuable asset who brought in viewers and revenue. Admitting to his behaviour would have risked scandal and financial loss, something the BBC was desperate to avoid. This attitude created an environment where predators could thrive, knowing their actions would likely be ignored or covered up. Employees were often discouraged from speaking out, and those who did were dismissed or silenced. This silence wasn't just within the BBC, but extended to other areas of Saville's influence.
So he was just protected. Wow. And that's how it starts too. I mean, something like that happens and there's no pushback, then you're okaying that behavior, and it's just going to get worse. It never happens and then just like, oh, you know what, I did wrong, I won't do that anymore. Especially back then.
Connections in the media, entertainment, and even law enforcement, which meant that complaints rarely went anywhere. The power and influence he held created significant obstacles for anyone trying to expose his behaviour. It wasn't until in late 2012, a year after Saville's death, that victims began to speak out about his abuse. Operation U-Tree, the Metropolitan Police's criminal investigation, claimed that throughout his time at the BBC, Saville is thought to have abused as many as 1,000 people, the youngest of which was just 5 years old.
Holy shit! Wow! He really was a creep, wasn't he? 5 years old? Hold on. Did they say that?
as 1,000 people, the youngest of which was just 5 years old.
Wow, yeah, that's not a creep. That is full on. That's a pedophile. Wow. Wow.
His crimes varied from sexual comments to assaulting children he met in hospital wards, even supposedly engaging in
necrophilia.
A 2014 inquiry into 28 NHS trusts revealed that 9 patients and 19 members of staff had reported his abuse over the years, but nothing ever came of them. A 2014 BBC inquiry into the abuse, conducted by Dame Janet Smith, revealed that people within the BBC had heard about his behaviour, but did nothing. Peter Saunders, chief executive of the National Association for People Abused in Childhood, stated, "The other thing I have found extraordinary, and very sad, is the number of people I have spoken to connected to the BBC, and that is a lot of people who said, 'Oh, yes, we all knew about him.'" Looking back at the video now is just heartbreaking. Jimmy Savile attacks a young, innocent woman on live television, and no one dared to stop him. He knew his status and authority would protect him, even if his disgusting actions were performed right in front of everyone. And this video is just one example of him acting inappropriately in front of children, yet nothing was ever done. Seeing this moment shows how such behaviour was ignored and even covered up for so long. It's clear to see the abuse that was once swept under the rug. No one should ever feel powerless to speak up, and every complaint should be taken seriously and not dismissed to protect the reputation of powerful individuals. It creates a breeding ground for predators like Savile.
If you're trying to protect the individual, then all you're okay, if somebody comes forward, hey, this happened, and you shoot it down, you're no longer protecting the individual. You are now taking the company, the corporation, the whatever, the BBC, and you are now, whether you mean to or not, you're siding with that person. So you have now just dragged yourself into being liable by allowing all of this to happen. Instead of, if you investigate it and you're like, no, he did wrong, and you know, he's investigated and he's charged and everything like that, you did the right thing. And you're also making sure that, hey, if we had any liability in this, then, but the longer you sweep it under the rug, it's a bigger pile of mess that's just building up under that rug. And eventually, when a lawsuit comes around, that's just more that you tried to hide. That's going to be more money that you're going to have to pay out. That's more punishment that you're going to have to deal with as a company, as a board, you know, the board. And it's utterly ridiculous that things can just be allowed. And I would like to say it doesn't happen anymore, but who knows? But it's just terrible.
At the expense of innocent and powerless people.
Sorry, I was kind of blocking the screen. I didn't realize just how close it was. Well, I hope you learned something. I hope you didn't enjoy it, but you enjoyed it because the person brought it forward, the void. But you didn't enjoy the video like, oh yeah, I love me some creeps. You know, that's a little weird. I hope you weren't rooting for the bomb, the explosion in the second one. That's a little weird. But you understand what I'm saying. So we're going to end this here. I'm all out of tea, so I got to get more. So until then, have a good day, have a good night. What did I do? I just started. I hit the wrong button. All right, let's try this. Take 2. Action. Have a good day, have a good night. Okay, this is the right button.